Admiral Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of his flagship Valiant and watched the tactical display with careful eyes. The Kresh swarm fleet filled the entire screen like a dark cloud of death moving toward Threshold Station. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Coalition for 5 years now, and in that time they had proven themselves to be the most effective warriors against the Kresh threat, the parasitic alien species that consumed entire star systems and left nothing but dead worlds behind them. Admiral, all human ships report ready for engagement, Commander Kevin Hayes said from his position at the communications station. His voice was steady, but Brooks could hear the tension underneath. This battle would determine everything about the war. Brooks nodded and opened the fleet-wide channel to address his captains. This is Admiral Brooks to all ships. Today we defend not just the Coalition, but the future of every species in this galaxy. The Kresh have pushed us back for 3 years, but today we push back. Our orders are clear. Engage their main fleet and hold them at Threshold Station while Coalition forces strike their supply lines. Humanity stands together and we will not fail. The response came back from 200 human warships. They were ready to fight and ready to die if necessary. Humanity had lost so many already in this war that they never stopped volunteering, never stopped building more ships, never stopped pushing forward when other species wanted to retreat. Ambassador Lauren Mitchell watched from the Coalition Council chamber as the battle preparations continued. She had been humanity's voice in this alliance since the beginning, but lately, something felt wrong. There were meetings she was not invited to anymore. Encrypted communications between the other Coalition species that excluded humans entirely. She had reported her concerns to Earth, but everyone told her she was being paranoid. The human forces are moving into position. Council of Vexstar announced to the assembled leaders of 20 different species. The tall insectoid alien gestured at the holographic display showing the battlefield. They are quite enthusiastic about following our battle plan. Several counselors made sounds that Mitchell had learned meant amusement or satisfaction. She felt a cold sensation in her stomach. Something was very wrong here. Chancellor, I must ask again why human command staff were not included in the final strategic briefing, Mitchell said carefully. Choosing her words to avoid giving offense, Vexstar turned his multifaceted eyes toward her and made a dismissive gesture with his upper appendages. Ambassador Mitchell, your species is still new to galactic warfare. We did not want to burden your admiral with unnecessary tactical complexities. He has his orders, and I am certain he will execute them admirably. Back on the Valiant. Brooks studied the Coalition fleet positions and frowned. Commander Hayes, are you seeing this? Hayes moved to stand beside him and looked at the tactical overlay. Sir, the Coalition ships are repositioning. They are moving away from the planned strike vectors. Get me Ambassador Mitchell immediately, Brooks ordered. His instincts were screaming that something was terribly wrong. 30 years in the military had taught him to trust those instincts before Hayes could establish the connection. Alarms blared across the bridge. Contact! Kresh fleet emerging from hyperspace. They are right on top of us. The battle erupted with devastating speed. Kresh bioships swarmed toward the human formation like locusts. Their organic weapons spitting corrosive projectiles that ate through shields and hull plating. Brooks quickly issued orders, and his fleet responded with disciplined precision. Human railguns and missile batteries opened fire while their fighters launched to intercept the Kresh. Attack craft. Coalition forces. We need immediate support on our port flank. Brooks transmitted on the Allied command frequency. We have 3 Kresh dreadnoughts breaking through. There was no response. Brooks watched in disbelief as the Coalition fleet continued to withdraw from the battle space. They are leaving, he said quietly. The realization hitting him like a physical blow. Commander Hayes was frantically trying every communication channel. Sir, I cannot reach any Coalition ships. They have blocked our transmissions. Dr. Rebecca Stone burst onto the bridge. The xenobiologist was supposed to be in the science bay, but her face was pale with shock. "Admiral, I just decrypted Coalition command traffic. They have been negotiating with the Kresh for months." This was all a setup. Brooks felt the ship shake as another Kresh salvo struck their shields. "Explain quickly, Doctor." "The Coalition made a deal with the Kresh," Stone said, her voice shaking with rage and horror. "They agreed to a ceasefire. The price was humanity. They lured us here to be destroyed." The bridge went silent, except for the sounds of weapons fire and damage alerts. Every officer on the command deck understood what this meant. They had been betrayed by the very alliance they had bled to defend. All ships. "This is Admiral Brooks," he said over the fleet channel. His voice was calm, despite the fury burning in his chest. "The Coalition has abandoned us. This is a betrayal. But we are human, and we do not surrender. Fight with everything you have, and make them pay for every meter of space." His fleet responded with renewed determination, even as their numbers dwindled. Human ships fought with desperate courage against overwhelming odds. They took down 5 Kresh vessels for everyone they lost, but there were simply too many enemies and no reinforcements coming. Brooks watched as ship after ship on his tactical display winked out of existence. Brave men and women dying because politicians had decided human lives were acceptable currency for peace. He thought of his wife Sarah back on Earth, his daughter Anna, who was only 7 years old. Would they ever know the truth about what happened here? "Sir, shields at 15%. We cannot sustain much more damage." Hayes reported Brooks made his decision. "Open a channel on all frequencies. Maximum broadcast power. I want this message to reach every Coalition world and every human colony." When Hayes nodded, Brooks began to speak. "This is Admiral Daniel Brooks of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. To all who receive this transmission, know that the Galactic Coalition has betrayed humanity. They made a secret treaty with the Kresh and used human forces as sacrificial offerings to secure their peace. We came to this battle believing we fought alongside allies, but we died alone, abandoned by those we trusted." He paused as another massive impact rocked the Valiant. Sparks flew from damaged consoles and the lights flickered. Humanity will remember this betrayal. If any of our people survive, they will know what was done here. The Coalition chose treachery over honor, and they will face the consequences of that choice. The Kresh dreadnought fired its main weapon directly at the Valiant's bridge. Brooks had one final second to think of his family before everything went white in the Coalition Council chamber. Ambassador Mitchell listened to Brooks' final transmission with tears streaming down her face. She looked at Vextar and the other counselors who seemed satisfied with their decision. "You have made a terrible mistake," she said quietly. "You have no idea what you have just done." Vextar made his species equivalent of a laugh. "We have secured peace at an acceptable cost." Humanity was becoming too dangerous anyway, too aggressive, too unpredictable. This solution addresses multiple problems. Mitchell stood and walked toward the exit. When she reached the door, she turned back one final time. "My people have a saying, Chancellor. Those who sow the wind will reap the whirlwind. You just declared war on the most dangerous species in this galaxy, and you do not even realize it yet." She left the chamber as reports came in confirming the destruction of the human fleet. Over 200,000 personnel lost, 60% of humanity's deep space naval capacity destroyed in a single battle. The Coalition celebrated their clever strategy while human colonies went into mourning. But on Earth and Mars and the hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, something else was beginning. Humanity was not broken by the betrayal. They were not defeated. They were making calculations of their own and preparing a response that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. The Coalition had chosen betrayal in war. Soon they would learn that humanity's response would be absolute. 3 months had passed since the massacre at Threshold Station, and the Galactic Coalition was celebrating. Chancellor Vextar addressed the council with what his species considered triumphant gestures. The war with the Kresh was over, and only one species had been sacrificed to achieve it. From his perspective, the mathematics were simple and acceptable. The human remnants have gone silent. Vextar announced to the assembled counselors. Our intelligence suggests their military capacity has been crippled beyond recovery. They lack the resources to threaten anyone now. Counselor Ixmara from the Vendari species shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She had opposed the betrayal from the beginning, but had been outvoted and silenced by the majority. Chancellor, I must remind the Council that humanity still controls significant industrial infrastructure, and their homeworld remains intact. Vextar made a dismissive sound. Industry without military force is meaningless. Besides, we have already begun dividing their former territories among coalition members. The human problem has been solved. What the coalition did not know was that Earth had not been idle during those 3 months. In a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Amanda Price stood before the remaining human military command. She was the sole surviving flag officer from the battle, having been on Earth during the betrayal, conducting training exercises. Colleagues, we face a choice, Price said, her voice steady despite the grief that weighed on every person in the room. We can rebuild defensively and hope the coalition leaves us alone. Or we can make them answer for what they did. The room erupted in angry voices. Every officer present had lost friends and family at Threshold Station. The betrayal had cut deep into humanity's sole engineer. Brandon Cole stood up. He was young for his position, but brilliant. General, I have been running scenarios with our remaining assets. If we focus entirely on military production and utilize the 3 hidden shipyards in the belt, we could rebuild our fleet within 18 months. Rebuild to what end? Asked Lieutenant Nicole Graham from Intelligence. The coalition still outnumbers us 20-1 in total military capacity. Cole smiled grimly. That calculation assumes we rebuild the same types of ships we lost. I am proposing we do not. He activated a holographic display showing ship designs that made several officers gasp. These were nothing like the conventional warships humanity had used before. These designs incorporate technologies we had only theorized about previously. We never had the resources or political will to pursue them. Now we have nothing to lose. Price studied the designs carefully. Stealth carriers that would be invisible to coalition sensors. Fighters equipped with AI-assisted targeting systems. Weapons that utilize principles the coalition had never encountered. How long to make these operational? 6 months for prototypes, 12 months for full production, Cole answered. But General, this is not just about new ships. I am talking about changing our entire approach to warfare. Over the next hour, Cole and Grant laid out their proposal. Humanity would not announce its recovery or make demands for justice through diplomatic channels. Instead, they would wage a campaign of silent destruction against coalition assets, appearing without warning, striking hard and vanishing before any response could be organized. We target their economy first, Grant explained, pointing to a star map, supply convoys, mining operations, trade routes. We bleed them slowly while building our strength. This is total war, Price said quietly. Once we begin this, there is no going back. The coalition will not negotiate or surrender. They will seek our complete destruction. An older colonel named Richard Hayes spoke up. His son Kevin had died commanding a destroyer at Threshold Station. General, they already sought our destruction. They just failed to finish the job. I say we show them the cost of that failure. The room filled with voices of agreement. Price let them talk for several minutes before raising her hand for silence. Then we are decided. This will not be a war of conquest. We do not want their territory or their resources. We want justice, and we want to ensure no species ever suffers what we suffered. She paused, and looked each officer in the eyes. We will dismantle their empire piece by piece. We will show them that betrayal has consequences. But we will not become the monsters they feared we might be when this is over. We will build something better. The vote was unanimous. Humanity committed itself to a path of total war against the Galactic Coalition. Every ship, every weapon, every resource would be directed toward a single goal back on the Coalition capital world. Vextar reviewed reports of human activity with satisfaction. Their communication traffic had dropped to minimal levels. Their military broadcasts had ceased entirely. All evidence suggested they had withdrawn to their core systems to lick their wounds. The human threat has been neutralized, he told his staff. We can now focus on integrating their former colonies into Coalition administration. Ixmara reviewed the same reports and reached a very different conclusion. Chancellor, this silence concerns me. Humans do not typically respond to aggression with quiet acceptance. You give them too much credit, Vextar replied. They are emotional creatures who lack the capacity for long-term strategic thinking. They will rage and mourn and eventually accept their new position as a minor species under Coalition protection. Ixmara wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. The Chancellor and his supporters had convinced themselves that humanity was no longer a threat. They would not listen to warnings. 6 months after the betrayal, the first new human warships began emerging from the hidden shipyards. They looked nothing like the vessels that had been destroyed at Threshold Station. These ships were sleek and dark, designed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them. Their weapons were compact and devastating. Their reactors produced twice the power output of equivalent Coalition designs. Captain Ryan Foster stood on the bridge of the Phantom, humanity's first stealth carrier, and felt a fierce pride in what his species had accomplished. All systems show green. We are ready for our first mission. His crew consisted of volunteers who had lost everything at Threshold Station. They were not seeking glory or fame. They wanted justice, and they were willing to die to achieve it. Lieutenant Michelle Turner led the Ghost Squadron, a unit of advanced fighters that could strike and vanish before enemies knew they were under attack. She had lost her brother at Threshold Station, and his death fueled her determination. Ghost Squadron ready for deployment, she reported. Just give us a target, Captain. Foster smiled. We have a Coalition supply convoy moving through the Outer Rim. 6 freighters carrying military equipment to a new base in former human territory. Let us introduce them to the new reality. The Phantom moved through space like a shadow. Its stealth systems made it effectively invisible to Coalition sensors when they reached the convoy location. Turner and her squadron launched without any alert being raised on the enemy ships. The attack lasted less than 3 minutes. Ghost Squadron's weapons tore through the freighter's shields and hulls with surgical precision. Before the Coalition escorts could even respond, the human fighters had vanished back into the Phantom, and the carrier had jumped away. 6 freighters destroyed. 0 survivors, 0 evidence of who attacked them. The Coalition investigators who arrived later found nothing but debris and radiation. This pattern repeated across Coalition space over the following months. Convoys disappeared. Mining stations went silent. Patrol ships vanished without distress calls. The Coalition security forces had no explanation and no leads. Vextar finally called an emergency council session when the losses reached critical levels. We are experiencing coordinated attacks across 12 sectors. Whoever is responsible has technology we cannot detect and tactics we cannot counter. Could it be the Crash breaking the treaty? One counselor suggested nervously. The Crash deny involvement, and our analysis confirms their ships are not capable of these attack patterns, Ixmara reported. Then she added carefully, there is another possibility we should consider. Vextar's eyes focused on her. Speak plainly, counselor. What if humanity survived our betrayal and is now retaliating? The chamber erupted in dismissive sounds and angry chittering. "Impossible," Vextar declared. "We destroyed 60% of their fleet. They lack the capability to wage this kind of campaign." Ixmara pulled up classified intelligence reports. "Chancellor, our agents report that human industrial output has increased dramatically. Their communications traffic suggests major military construction, and most concerning, we have not detected a single human warship on sensors in 6 months, because they are hiding and rebuilding defensively," Vextar insisted before Ixmara could respond. Every screen in the council chamber suddenly activated. Ambassador Lauren Mitchell's face appeared. She looked older and harder than when she had left the coalition capital months ago. "Greetings, Chancellor Vextar and assembled councilors," Mitchell said, her voice cold and formal. "I speak for humanity, and I come with a message." Vextar tried to cut the transmission, but his technicians reported they could not block it. "This is an illegal intrusion into coalition systems." Mitchell ignored him. "For 3 months, you have experienced mysterious attacks on your assets. You have blamed pirates and technical failures and crashed treaty violations." 1 year after the betrayal at Threshold Station, Councillor Ixmara stood in the Coalition Intelligence Center and studied reports that made no sense. Over the past 6 months, more than 300 coalition ships had disappeared. Supply lines were collapsing. Mining operations on former human worlds had been systematically destroyed. And still they had no visual confirmation of enemy forces. "Show me the Orion sector incident again," she ordered her. Analysts, the holographic display replayed sensor data from a coalition patrol that had investigated a silent mining station. The recording showed normal operations one moment and then sudden explosions the next. 14 ships destroyed in less than 2 minutes. But the sensors showed nothing. No enemy vessels, no weapon signatures. Just devastation. "This is impossible," one analyst muttered. "Our sensors can detect anything larger than a fighter craft. Yet we see nothing." Ixmara had a terrible suspicion about what they were facing. Unless the enemy has developed stealth technology that renders our sensors useless. The analysts looked at her with expressions of disbelief. Such technology was theoretically possible, but no coalition species had ever achieved it. The resources and scientific knowledge required were immense. "Contact the research division," Ixmara ordered. "I want to know if humanity had any stealth technology programs before the betrayal." While coalition intelligence struggled to understand what was happening, Captain Ryan Foster's fleet of stealth carriers was operating with devastating efficiency. His ships moved through coalition space like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing before any response could be organized. "Target acquired," Foster announced from the Phantom's bridge. "Coalition weapons depot on Carina 7, lightly defended. High value." Lieutenant Michelle Turner reviewed the tactical data from her fighter cockpit. "Ghost Squadron is ready, sir. We can be in and out in 4 minutes. Execute the strike." Foster ordered 20 fighters launched from the Phantom's base and accelerated toward the planet. Their stealth coating and electronic warfare systems made them invisible to the depot's defenses. Turner led her squadron in a precision attack that destroyed ammunition stores, weapons manufacturing facilities, and the garrison's communication array. The coalition defenders fired wildly at empty space. Their targeting systems showed nothing to lock onto. By the time they realized they were under attack, Ghost Squadron was already gone, and the Phantom had jumped to hyperspace back at Coalition headquarters. Chancellor Vextar was losing his composure. "How can an entire species wage war against us, and we cannot even see them? The human technology has advanced beyond our intelligence estimates," Ixmara reported, trying to keep her voice neutral. "They are using stealth systems that defeat our sensors and weapons that strike before our defenses can respond." Vextar slammed his appendage against the table. "Then upgrade our sensors. Develop countermeasures. I will not tolerate these continued losses. Chancellor, our scientists say it could take years to develop effective counter-stealth technology, Ixmara explained. Humanity had 5 years of access to Coalition research databases before the betrayal. They knew exactly what our sensors could detect and designed their ships. Accordingly, the implications of that statement hung in the air. Humanity had been planning for this possibility, even while serving as loyal Coalition members. They had prepared for the day when trust might be broken. Increase patrols in all sectors, Vextar ordered. If we cannot detect them electronically, then we will find them through sheer numbers. Ixmara wanted to argue that this strategy would only create more targets for human attacks, but she held her silence. The Chancellor was not interested in her opinions anymore. The Coalition fleet mobilized across dozens of systems, thousands of ships conducting sweeps and patrols. For several weeks, the human attacks seemed to decrease, and Vextar claimed his strategy was working. Then, the trap sprang shut. A Coalition battle group of 40 warships was conducting a standard patrol in the Vega sector when they received a distress call from a nearby colony. The admiral in command ordered his forces to investigate and found the colony under attack. Multiple enemy signatures detected. The sensor operator reported, I count at least 20 hostile vessels. The Coalition ships moved to engage, and suddenly their sensors cleared. There were no enemy vessels. The colony was undamaged. The distress call had been a fabrication, Admiral. We are detecting massive energy buildup all around us. Before the Coalition forces could react, human ships decloaked on every side. They had been waiting in stealth mode, and the Coalition fleet had walked right into their ambush. Captain Foster's Phantom and 3 other stealth carriers launched over 100 fighters, while their escorts opened fire with devastating precision. The Coalition battle group tried to form defensive positions, but the human attack was overwhelming. Their ships appeared and disappeared like phantoms, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before return fire could connect. Advanced human weapons cut through Coalition shields that had been designed for crash bioweapons, not the focused energy and kinetic attacks humanity employed in less than 15 minutes. 37 Coalition ships were destroyed or crippled. The survivors fled in disorder while human forces vanished back into stealth. No human vessels were even damaged in the engagement. The news of the Vega ambush sent shock waves through Coalition space. Species that had felt secure behind their powerful fleet now realized they were vulnerable. Human forces could strike anywhere at any time, and Coalition defenses were nearly useless. Vextar called an emergency council session. His usual confidence was replaced by barely contained panic. We are losing this war, and we do not even know how many ships the enemy has. Our intelligence estimates humanity has between 400 and 600 combat vessels, Ixmara reported, all equipped with stealth technology and advanced weapon systems. 600 ships against our thousands, and we are losing? Another counselor demanded Ixmara pulled up battle damage reports. Chancellor, the issue is not numbers, but capability. Human ships are technologically superior to ours in every measurable category. Their reactors produce more power. Their weapons hit harder, their defenses are stronger, and their stealth systems make conventional tactics useless. How did they advance so quickly? Vextar asked. Focused research and unlimited resources, Ixmara explained. When we betrayed humanity, we unified their entire species toward a single goal. Every scientist, every engineer, every factory has been dedicated to military advancement for the past year. They have achieved in 12 months what would normally take decades. The council chamber filled with nervous sounds as the counselors began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. Humanity was not just fighting back, they were winning on Earth. General Amanda Price reviewed reports from the fleet commanders with satisfaction. The campaign was proceeding better than projected. Coalition forces were scattered and demoralized, while human ships operated with increasing confidence. General, we have a communication from Ambassador Mitchell. Her aide reported Mitchell appeared on the screen looking tired but determined. General, I have been monitoring Coalition intelligence traffic. They still do not understand the scope of our capabilities. Good, Price replied. Let them keep underestimating us. How are the diplomatic channels? Closed completely, Mitchell said. Vexstar refuses to acknowledge our demands for justice. He believes if he can just find and destroy our hidden bases, the problem will be solved. Price smiled grimly. Then we will show him there are no bases to find. Our entire fleet is mobile and self-sufficient. We can wage this war indefinitely. Engineer Brandon Cole joined the conversation. General, the new weapons platforms are ready for deployment. I have also completed designs for our next generation of warships. How much better than what we have now? Price asked. 30% improvement in combat effectiveness, Cole answered. And I have teams working on even more advanced concepts. Price considered the implications. Humanity was not just fighting a war. They were engaged in a technological revolution driven by necessity and rage. Every month made them more powerful while the Coalition remained static. Continue production of current designs, Price ordered. We will deploy the new platforms in the next operation. What is our target? Lieutenant Nicole Grant brought up a star map. I recommend the Coalition shipyards at Arcturus. They are attempting to upgrade their fleet with better sensors. If we destroy their construction facilities, we set their counter-stealth program back by at least a year. Approved, Price said immediately. Coordinate with Captain Foster for the attack. 3 weeks later, Foster's strike force arrived at Arcturus in complete stealth. The Coalition shipyards were heavily defended with over 60 warships on patrol. But defenses meant nothing if you could not see your enemy. All ships report ready, Foster announced. Go squadron. You are cleared for attack run. Turner led her fighters toward the massive construction platforms that floated in orbit. The Coalition had invested enormous resources into these facilities, and their destruction would be a crippling blow. The first explosions caught the defenders completely by surprise. Massive construction frames collapsed and fragile scaffolding shattered as human weapons tore through them. The Coalition ships raced toward the attack. Admiral Christopher Grant stood in the command center buried deep beneath the lunar surface and watched the Coalition fleet approach on his tactical display. 2,000 warships arranged in a formation that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. It was an intimidating sight that would have terrified most species. But Grant had been preparing for this moment for over a year. All defense platforms report ready. His operations officer reported, Earth's orbital batteries are charged. Mars garrison is at full alert. The asteroid belt defense grid is active. What is the status of our fleet? Grant asked calmly. 412 ships in defensive positions around Earth. Another 86 holding in reserve behind the moon, the officer answered. We are outnumbered nearly 5-1, sir. Grant allowed himself a small smile. Numbers have never been humanity's advantage. Tell all commands they are authorized to engage when the enemy enters weapons range. On the Coalition flagship. Fleet Commander Zek Nor reviewed the human defensive positions with satisfaction. They have arranged their ships in a standard orbital defense pattern. How predictable. His tactical officer pointed to the sensor readings. Commander, we are detecting only 500 human vessels. Our intelligence estimated they had at least 600 combat-capable ships. Perhaps some are still under construction or were destroyed in our recent engagements. Zek Nor replied. Either way, the odds are heavily in our favor. Signal the fleet to advance. We will crush their defenses and then bombard the planet until they surrender. The Coalition fleet moved forward in disciplined formation. Their ships filled the space around Earth like a closing fist. When they reached maximum weapons range, Zeknor gave the order to open fire. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward human positions. The coalition commander expected to see defensive shields collapse and ships destroyed. Instead, the human vessels absorbed the bombardment with minimal damage. "Sir, their shields are holding," the tactical officer reported in shock. "They are significantly stronger than our intelligence predicted." Before Zeknor could respond, Admiral Grant gave his order. "All ships, open fire. Show them what we have built." The human fleet unleashed a devastating counterattack. Their weapons had been upgraded with new reactor designs that Cole's engineers had developed. Each shot carried twice the energy of equivalent coalition weapons. Coalition shields that had been designed to withstand crash. Bioweapons shattered under the focused assault. 20 enemy ships destroyed in the first exchange. Grant's officer reported, "Minimal damage to our forces." Grant opened a channel to Engineer Brandon Cole, who was overseeing the lunar weapons platforms. "Cole, you are authorized to fire when ready." "Understood, Admiral," Cole replied, activating the railgun network now. Across the lunar surface, massive electromagnetic railguns emerged from concealed positions. These weapons had been under construction for the entire year, designed to accelerate projectiles to 15% of light speed. Coalition shields were optimized to deflect energy weapons and had minimal protection against kinetic impacts. The first salvo fired. 30 tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, were launched toward the coalition fleet. They crossed the distance in seconds and struck with the force of nuclear weapons. The targeted ships simply disintegrated, their shields useless against the devastating kinetic energy. "Direct hits confirmed," Cole reported. 30 enemy vessels destroyed, reloading for second salvo on the coalition flagship. Chaos erupted as commanders tried to understand what was happening. "Report. What kind of weapon was that?" "Kinetic bombardment at relativistic speeds." The science officer shouted, "Our shields cannot stop that kind of impact." Zeknor realized with growing horror that the humans had prepared specifically to counter coalition defenses. "Break formation. Engage evasive maneuvers." But breaking formation only made things worse. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than their coalition counterparts. They pursued the scattering enemy vessels and destroyed them with focused fire. Lieutenant Michelle Turner's Ghost Squadron launched from their carriers and began hunting coalition support ships. "Target the human carriers," Zeknor ordered desperately. "If we destroy their fighter support, we can regain control." Coalition ships attempted to target the human carriers, but found themselves unable to get a clear shot. The carriers' escorts moved with perfect coordination. Their AI-assisted targeting systems made every shot count, while their defensive systems intercepted incoming fire with near-perfect accuracy. General Amanda Price watched the battle from Earth's command center with grim satisfaction. "The Coalition is learning what happens when you give humanity a year to prepare. Every system we have is designed specifically to counter their tactics." The lunar rail guns fired again and again, each salvo destroying dozens of coalition ships that could not dodge the relativistic projectiles. Human fighters swarmed through the enemy formation like wolves among sheep. Their advanced sensors and weapons made them nearly impossible to hit, while they destroyed targets with ruthless efficiency. "Sir, the Coalition is attempting to withdraw," Grant's officer reported. "Do not let them escape," Grant ordered. "Pursue and destroy. I want the survivors to carry a message back to their leaders." Human ships accelerated after the fleeing coalition forces, their superior speed allowing them to catch vessels trying to reach hyperspace jump points. It became a slaughter as desperate coalition ships tried to run while human weapons tore them apart. Captain Ryan Foster's Phantom had remained in stealth throughout the initial battle. Now he decloaked behind the coalition flagship and launched a full strike. Go Squadron. Disable their engines, but leave the command section intact. I want their fleet commander alive. Turner led the attack with surgical precision. Her fighters crippled Zeknor's ship without destroying it. The Coalition commander found himself drifting helpless in space, while his fleet disintegrated. Around him, the battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 2,000 Coalition ships had been reduced to fewer than 300 survivors. Human losses totaled 12 ships destroyed and 34 damaged. The numerical advantage had meant nothing against superior technology and tactical planning. Admiral Grant broadcast a message that would reach every Coalition world. This is Admiral Christopher Grant of the Human Defense Fleet. You came to our home seeking to destroy us. You believed your numbers would guarantee victory. You were wrong. He paused to let that sink in. We have destroyed your fleet and captured your commanders. This was our defense. Now our offense begins. Every world that participated in the betrayal at Threshold Station will face consequences. Every leader who ordered the attack will answer for their crimes. Grant's expression hardened. You chose to make humanity your enemy. You will learn that was the worst decision your species ever made. We are coming for you. The transmission ended and Coalition observers across the galaxy watched in horror as the human fleet began moving outward from Earth. Not toward any specific target, but spreading across multiple vectors. They were taking the war to Coalition Spash as Ignore sat in the brig of a human ship and trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. They had outnumbered the humans 5-1. They had the advantage of surprise and overwhelming force. Yet they had been crushed with contemptuous ease. General Price arrived to interrogate him personally. Commander Zeknor, you have been charged with crimes against humanity. You led the attack on Earth, intending to commit genocide against our species. Zeknor made a gesture of confusion. We followed the Chancellor's orders. We believed you were an existential threat to the Coalition. And who told you we were a threat? Price asked. We served the Coalition faithfully for 5 years. We bled and died defending species that then betrayed us. Chancellor Vextar said humanity was becoming too powerful, too aggressive, Zeknor replied. He convinced the Council that you needed to be eliminated before you could threaten Coalition stability. Price leaned forward. So you came to exterminate an entire species based on the lies of a politician who feared losing power. Do you understand what you have unleashed? Zeknor did not answer, but his expression showed he was beginning to comprehend the magnitude of the mistake. Humanity is not naturally aggressive or violent, Price explained. We can be peaceful, cooperative, even idealistic. But when you betray us, when you try to exterminate us, you awaken something that will not stop until justice is served. She stood to leave. You will be held for trial, along with the other Coalition leaders who orchestrated this war. Your testimony will help ensure the truth is known. After Price left, Zeknor sat in silence and thought about the human admiral's words. The Coalition had created their worst nightmare by attacking humanity unjustly. They had unified a dangerous species and given them a righteous cause back on Earth. Engineer Cole was already working on next-generation weapons systems. General Price, I have teams developing even more advanced technology. If we face another Coalition fleet, we can defeat them even more decisively. How long until the Coalition can rebuild their forces? Price asked. Lieutenant Grant answered from intelligence. Our analysis suggests at least 3 years before they can field another major fleet. The loss at Earth was catastrophic to their military capacity. 3 years, Price repeated. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Daniel Brooks Jr. stood on the bridge of his flagship, Redemption, and looked at the tactical display showing the Coalition capital world. His fleet had fought its way across 17 star systems to reach this moment. The homeworld of the government that had murdered his father and 200,000 other humans. Sir, "We are receiving surrender signals from the Planetary Defense Forces," his communications officer reported. "They are requesting terms." Brooks picked up his father's personal log. The worn datapad had become his constant companion during the campaign. He had read every entry dozens of times and tried to understand what his father would want him to do now. "Tell them their surrender is accepted," Brooks said carefully. "We seek only the coalition leadership who orchestrated the betrayal. Civilian populations will not be harmed." His executive officer looked concerned. "Admiral, General Price authorized us to use whatever force necessary to secure justice." "I am aware of my orders," Brooks replied. "But my father believed in honor even when dealing with enemies. We will not become the monsters they feared we were." The Redemption entered orbit without firing a shot. Coalition citizens watched in fear as human ships took control of their space. They had been told for months that humanity was a savage species bent on galactic conquest. Instead, they saw disciplined military forces that targeted only government and military installations. Ambassador Lauren Mitchell arrived on the coalition capital, accompanied by a security detail. She had spent the past year coordinating humanity's diplomatic efforts while the military waged war. Now she would see justice serve. Chancellor Vextar and 17 other coalition leaders were arrested without resistance. They had nowhere to run and no forces willing to defend them. The coalition military had collapsed after the defeat at Earth, and member species were in chaos trying to reorganize their governments. "You cannot do this," Vextar protested as human Marines escorted him to a detention facility. "I am the lawfully elected Chancellor of the Galactic Coalition." Mitchell looked at him with cold eyes. "You were the leader who betrayed your allies and sacrificed an entire species to save yourselves. Now you will face trial for those crimes." The trial was held on a neutral station and broadcast across the entire galaxy. Humanity insisted on transparency so every species could see the evidence. Mitchell served as the chief prosecutor and presented detailed records of the coalition's secret negotiations with the Kresh. The evidence shows that coalition leadership knew the Kresh would demand human extermination as the price for peace. Mitchell explained to the assembled judges from neutral species. Despite this knowledge, they proceeded with the plan and deliberately lured human forces into a trap at Threshold Station. She played Admiral Daniel Brooks. Final transmission. His words about betrayal and consequences echoed through the courtroom. 200,000 humans died that day, including my friend Admiral Brooks. They died believing they were defending the galaxy. Instead, they were murdered by those they trusted. Vextar's defense attorney argued that the decision was made for the greater good. The coalition faced existential threat from the Kresh swarm. Sacrificing one species to save 20 was a logical choice. Counselor Ixmara took the stand as a witness. She had opposed the betrayal from the beginning, and now she testified about what really happened in the Coalition Council. This was not a difficult decision made under pressure. This was a calculated plot developed over 6 months. Chancellor Vextar convinced the Council that humanity was becoming too powerful and needed to be eliminated. The Kresh Treaty was convenient justification for what he already wanted to do. Her testimony revealed communication showing Vextar had been planning to betray humanity long before the Kresh offered terms. He had feared human military capability and sought to eliminate them while he still could. The revelation shocked many in the courtroom. This was not a tragedy of war, but premeditated murder of allies. The judges deliberated for 3 days before returning their verdict. "We find the defendants guilty of crimes against sentient beings," the chief judge announced. "The evidence clearly shows deliberate planning to eliminate humanity through deception and betrayal. This action violated every principle of galactic law and common decency." Mitchell stood to hear humanity's sentence. She had advocated for execution, but General Price had urged restraint. What punishment does humanity request? We request permanent exile to a remote world where they can live out their lives stripped of all rank and authority. Mitchell announced, no execution, no torture. Just removal from power and the knowledge that history will remember them as architects of betrayal. Many observers were surprised by the relatively merciful sentence. After everything humanity had suffered, they had the right to demand blood. Instead, they chose justice over vengeance. Vegstar was taken away to his exile, and Brooks Jr. watched from the observation gallery. Do you think this is what your father would have wanted? Counselor Ixmara asked. She had approached him after the verdict. Brooks considered the question carefully. My father believed in honor and dignity. He would have wanted justice, but not needless cruelty. Killing Vegstar would not bring back the dead. Exiling him proves we are better than he ever was. Ixmara nodded with respect. Humanity has taught the galaxy an important lesson. You had every reason to seek revenge, but you chose justice instead. That will be remembered long after this war is forgotten. While the trials concluded, General Amanda Price was working with reformist coalition members to establish a new galactic government. The old coalition had collapsed with most member species declaring independence. The challenge was creating something better from the ruins. We propose a new galactic alliance based on principles of equality and transparency, Ixmara explained during the founding conference. Every member species will have equal representation, regardless of size or military power. And betrayal of allies will be explicitly defined as a crime against the alliance itself. Price reviewed the proposed charter. This looks acceptable, but humanity will need guarantees that we will never again be made vulnerable to coordinated attack. We understand your concerns, Ixmara replied. The charter includes provisions for mutual defense treaties and prohibitions on secret negotiations with hostile powers. If any member attempts what the old coalition did, they will face collective response from all other members, Engineer Brandon Cole attended the conference as humanity's technical representative. We are willing to share some of our advanced technology to help rebuild galactic defenses, but we will maintain certain capabilities exclusively for human forces. The other species accepted this readily. They had learned through painful experience that humanity's technological advancement made them the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Trying to restrict or control that power would only recreate the conditions that led to the betrayal. Dr. Rebecca Stone presented research that had continued throughout the war. My team has been studying Kresh communication patterns. We believe we have developed a method to negotiate with them rather than just fight. This news sparked intense interest. The Kresh had been the original threat that led to the Coalition's desperate choices. If humanity had found a way to make peace with them, then the entire war might have been prevented. The Kresh are not truly evil, Stone explained. They are driven by biological imperatives we did not understand. With proper communication, we may be able to redirect their expansion away from inhabited space. Ixmara looked hopeful. If this works, it could prevent future conflicts and honor the sacrifice of those who died fighting them. Brooks Jr. requested permission to lead the diplomatic mission to the Kresh. My father died because of failed diplomacy with the Kresh. I want to be part of the solution. The mission departed 3 months later with ships from multiple species. Brooks commanded the human contingent, while Ixmara represented the reformist coalition members. Dr. Stone's communication protocols allowed them to establish dialogue with the Kresh Hive consciousness. The negotiations were difficult and required months of careful work. But eventually, a treaty was reached that redirected Kresh expansion toward uninhabited regions of space. The war that had cost so many lives was finally ending through diplomacy rather than destruction. 5 years after the betrayal at Threshold Station, the new Galactic Alliance held its founding ceremony on neutral ground. Representatives from 43 species gathered to sign the charter and commit to a better future. General Price gave a speech honoring the fallen. We are here today because 200,000 humans died defending what they believed was a just cause. Their sacrifice was betrayed, but it was not meaningless. We have built something better from that tragedy. We have proven that even the worst betrayal can lead to positive change if we choose justice over revenge. She paused and looked across the assembled delegates. Humanity came to the stars seeking friendship and found treachery. We responded with strength, but also with mercy. We defeated our enemies, but we did not become them. That is the legacy we leave for future generations. Ambassador Mitchell stood beside her and added, "The old coalition made a terrible choice and faced the consequences. But Counselor Ixmara and others like her opposed that choice and worked